Hacking web servers. Now first, how these web servers work. Web servers operations. Before if we want to hack the web servers, then we should know that how the web server works and what is the operations of web servers. So a web server is a computer system that stores, processes and delivers web pages to client via HTTP protocol. So it is a server machine which stores the files and processes the files and delivers the files, that is web pages, to clients via HTTP protocol. Components of these web servers are document root. Document root is the directory which stores the critical HTML files related to the web pages of a domain name that will be served in response to the request. So this is the directory where all the web pages will be stored for the particular websites. So if we have a website and if suppose the website is configured or web application is configured, so all the related files will be stored into that directory, and that directory is called document root directory. Then we have server root. Server root stores server's configurations, error and executable and log files. This is the configuration directory where it stores all the configuration and error related files and executable files and also log files, which is stored into the configuration directory, that is server root directory. Then we have virtual document tree. This provides storage on a different machines or disk after the original disk is filled up. So if it is like a backup where we can store it, provide the storage into the different machines or disk. So if original disk is full, then we can get that storage. Then virtual hosting. Virtual hosting is a technique of hosting multiple domains or websites on the same server. That means in the single server, if we don't do anything, so by default we can host only one website. But by using the virtual hosting, we can do multiple websites we can host in the single server. Then web proxy. This web proxy server that sits in between the web client and web server to prevent IP blocking and maintaining anonymity. So it is the proxy server is actually an application firewall which provide the security for the client, that and also provide the filtering of the client, that which client can access the servers or internet or the websites or what sites they can access. Now here we can see in this image that this is a typical client server web server operations. So in the web servers, what we have a clients who are accessing the web servers, that is web client. Then we have web servers. Web servers is the server who stores and processes and delivers those web pages. After web servers, we have static data store and we have application data store, and then we have application server. Now sometime we can have all these things in the single server. That means we can have a database and also the application is stored into the same web server. Mostly the application is stored into the same server. Databases we stored into different servers or different location or different device. So any application we have, any web application or application we have, those applications need some data to be stored. So suppose for example Facebook. So Facebook, when you log into the Facebook, so Facebook is a web application which is hosted on a web server. But when you log in with your credential, so your whole data, your whole profile loaded and your whole videos and data and everything will load it. Now to manage those kind of database, because it is not a single file you're having lots of files, you're having lots of videos, images, you have shared those images, you have like, dislike, those things, all those things they have not able to store into those single servers. So actually they have stored into the database servers. Database servers are the special servers where they have stored the data and we can retrieve the data from it. So most of the web applications do what? They store their data into the database stores. Those database stores can be SQL, MySQL, Oracle, these kind of database services we have. So when client send the request on the web server, when client send the GET request, remember in web servers we have two type of request. One, GET request, and second is the POST request. GET is to get the data and POST is to post the data into server. Post, that means when we log in, when we give username, password, when we fill a form, when we search something, so actually we are doing posting the data. That means we are adding the data into server. So when the client send the GET request, it goes to the web server. Now web server forwarded the request to web application, that is application server. In application server we have web container and other services. Web container, where we are having the web application stored, all the files related to the web application stored into that web container. Now if the request need to be access the database, then application server, then our web application do what? It will create the query and send the query to database to get the data, and the database based on the query responds with the data. Then web application provide the data to web server, and web server provide the data to client. So when we send the request, it goes to web server forwarded the request to application. Mostly the web application, that is web server, application server and the web servers are same. So it processes the request, and if needs to be need to access the data, for example you are logging into the server, so when you logging in, that means you are providing username and password. Now all the usernames and password data are stored into the database server, because there is lots of data there. There might be a lots of users data we have, so those data will store into the database server. So they will get the data from the database server, and then the response, and they will authenticate the user, or they can give you the data through the web server, and the client will get the data. So this is a normal web server operations. Now open source web server architecture, that means if you see the web server which is in the open source, that means it is not a proprietary, anyone can access. So it is Unix or Linux based operating, it is Linux or Unix based, we can say Unix based web server. It is called open source web server. So the architecture for this is simple, like we have web server application, that is Apache. Apache is mostly used for open source web servers like Linux. So this Apache based server, which can have a support of PHP language and also compiled extension. This is web server protections, web server files and components. And then we have the email also, we have database, it is connected to the database, and on that web server it is configured with the web application, and then the HTML and XML and the other files related to creating the application. So with the help of these documentations, these different files, these HTML, CSS and all that, we create the application. Then we store the file here in the application, like image file, video file. So all those files are into the application, and it is accessed by the web server, that is Apache web server. It also support the PHP. So if we have designed the website based on the PHP tools, so PHP, so it is PHP component is there, and then other compiled extension, and also the application is connected to web server, database server, that might be SQL, and also connected to mail server. If anything goes wrong, so it will send the mail to the responsible person. And users, normal users, all they are accessing these servers through the internet or through the network, and same as the attacker also can access it from the internet. So users and administrators and also attacker will access these sites from internet. Then other architecture is of proprietary, that means Microsoft. In Microsoft we have web server, it is called IIS web server. that is Internet Information Services, IIS. Now this server architecture is, now this is not open source because it is proprietary by the Microsoft. It is called Internet Information Services, IIS. IIS for Windows Server, and it is a flexible, secure and easy to manage web server for hosting anything on the web. And because it is graphical also, because it is graphical, it is easy also, easy to manage also. So in this what we have is the HTTP protocol stack, that is the file http.sys. Then in the background we have svc host.exe, which is managing Windows activation services, www services. Then we have the external apps, that is application on host.config file. In the application pool we have web server core. Web server core is the being request processing, authentication, authorization, cache resolution, handler, mapping handler, pre-execution, release state, update cache, update login and request processing. This is web server core. Then we have native modules, that is anonymous authentication, manage engine, IIS certificate, mapping, static file, default documents, HTTP cache, HTTP error and HTTP login. Then we have app domain, where we have manage modules and forms authentications. So this is the normal architecture of application pool, where we have different application pools related to, and these different applications pool have these different components which we can use to configure a web application based on IIS web server. So clients will send the request to HTTP through the HTTP protocol, and that request will be processed by the application, and these application services are using this application pool to run those applications. And also we have the database services connected. Now web servers security issues. What is the security issues we have in web servers? So web servers is a program, both hardware and software, that host websites. Attackers usually target software vulnerabilities and configuration errors to compromise the web servers. Nowadays, network and OS level attacks can be well defended using proper network security measures such as firewalls, IDS. So, like whatever the network and OS level attacks we have, so that can be easily secured by the, or we can secure it by the firewalls and IDS. Now, however, web servers are accessible from anywhere on the web, which makes them less secured and more vulnerable to attacks. Now remember, we can secure, suppose we have important things and we want to save that thing, so we can disable it from the firewall, we can block it so nobody will get the access of those things. But these web servers are meant to be accessed, they are meant to be accessed by internet. We configure these web servers that everyone can access it. Now because it is made to be accessed by everyone from the internet, then it is less secured and it has the vulnerabilities. So if you go by the stake wise, so first stake is the security. We can provide this by IPS and IDS. Then second stake is about network, securing the network, that we can do by the routers and switches. Third is about the operating system like Windows, Linux or OS X. Then comes the web servers. Web servers on stake 4, we can use Apache web server, open source web server, or we can use Microsoft IIS, which is proprietary. Then web servers use database services. So stake 5 we can say it is database. Database can be Oracle SQL, MySQL or Microsoft SQL. Then we have third party components, that is open source or commercial, that is not free. Open source, that means it is almost free, but the commercials are not free. Then web custom applications. Custom applications, that means business logic flows, technical vulnerabilities it has. This custom web application, that means those organizations or those companies, they do make their application, their own custom applications. They make those application which suits their requirements, like what they do, or what they suppose they are, suppose like they are it is a bank. So for banking use, they have their own application design where they can do store their information about the users, about the departments, about the cash in, cash out, whatever. So they made custom applications for that. Just like these banks, we have different organizations, they made applications for themselves so that they can use or they can do work easily. So based on that, we have different vulnerability. Now, why web servers are compromised? So these are the some reasons because of that these web servers are compromised. First, like improper file and directory permissions. So the person, the administrator who is configuring the web server, if it has not provided the proper permissions for the files and directories, that means improper permissions on files and directory, then it can lead to be compromised web servers. Then installing the server with default settings. Always remember these default settings are not good because everyone knows what are the default settings. So it can easily compromise that server by using the default settings. Unnecessary services enabled, including content management and remote administrations. Now unnecessary services enabled, that means suppose the server has been configured but they don't know that what services are running, and sometimes they keep those services running which they don't want it. Or suppose they enable the remote administration which is they don't require it, but still it is enabled. So those things can be used by the hacker to compromise the server. Then security conflicts with business and ease of use case. This is also a problem, like security and also ease of use. These two things is not, it is not easy to manage these two things together. Suppose if you put lots of securities, then it is not become easy to use. Now if you want the server should be easy to use or application should be easy to use, then you have to remove a lots of security measures. So if you use lots of security measures, then it become less easy to use. And if you go for more easy and easy to use, then you have to compromise with some security problems. So it is conflict, it is conflicting. The ease of use always conflict with security. We have to make proper balance. Then lack of proper security policies, procedures and maintenance. So when we configure these things, we have to make sure that we have decided the proper security, and we have to make the proper procedures and also maintenance also. Then improper authentication with external systems. External systems which is also used, suppose the application is using some external systems. Now if it is not properly authenticated, that could lead to the problem. Then default accounts with their default or no passwords. Again it is like a default settings. So if you are using a default settings with the default account, sometime it is not having a password. So it is a problem here. Unnecessary default backup or sample files. And if suppose there is unnecessary default things and also unnecessary backup files or sample files, it can lead the information, it can leak the information. Like if suppose hacker does get the access of those sample files, it can see that what is the configuration and other things, like it can guess what is these things, what are the configurations. Then misconfigurations. Misconfigurations is web server, operating system and network. If suppose the administrator has not configured it right or correctly, that means it is a misconfigured, and misconfiguration is used by the attackers. Bugs in server software, operating system and web application. And if suppose there is some application problems like bugs, that can also be used by the attackers to compromise the server. Misconfigured SSL certificates and encryption settings. And also if suppose the SSL configurations, like we use the SSL configuration to secure the server, to do the encryption, and if it is not properly configured, and if suppose we use self-signed certificates, mostly the self-signed certificates are not that secure, if because the self-signed certificate in decryption keys also stored into the same server or same machine. So if suppose somebody gets the access of those keys, so it can easily decrypt everything. So misconfigurations of this encryption or certificates, SSL certificates, is also a problem. Administrative or debugging functions that are enabled or accessible on web servers. Enabling debugging the administrators enable the debugging to do the troubleshooting. So sometimes they want to do the troubleshooting, so they enable some debugging features, and if they forgot to disable it and it is still accessible on web servers, that means it can also lead to the problem. Use of self-signed certificate and default certificates. That is what I said. If suppose you use the self-signed certificate or default certificate, they are not secure because the decryption keys will store into the same server and it can easily accessible. Like it can if suppose the attacker get the access of that key, so it is easy for that attacker to decrypt all the encryptions and compromise your server. And if your server is compromised, then what impact these web server attack have? Compromise of your user accounts, website defacement, secondary attack from the website, root access to the other application or servers, and data tampering and data theft. Compromise user accounts. If suppose the application is compromised, if the web server is compromised, so all the accounts of those web servers will be compromised. It can lead to defacement of website. Defacement of website, that means it will change the website look. So it changes the look of the site. Now look of the site, that means sometimes what it's a genuine site, and when you go to that site, it will show the pop-ups. It will show sometime pop-ups or something, and it will lead the user to some fake websites. That means it want to redirect the site. It want the user to redirect to somebody somewhere else. For that, it do the defacement. The attacker do the defacement of the original site or legitimate site to forward the user, redirect the user to somebody else, somewhere else. Secondary attack from the website, that means the server, it uses the same server to do attack on somebody else. Root access to the other applications, that means if the server is having multiple applications, so compromising one application can lead to attack on different applications also, and then they can do tamper the data and theft the data. These are the impact we have on the web server attack. Now what are the attacks we have on web servers? So we have different type of attacks on web server. First, denial of service, or we can say distributed denial of service attack. In this, attacker may send numerous fake requests to the web server, which result in the web server crash or become unavailable to the legitimate user. That is denial of service. Attacker may target high profile web servers such as bank, credit card payment gateways, government owned services, etc. to steal user credentials. Now why the attacker, and simple, if it is not able to crash the site from the single machine, then what attacker do? They use the botnet to do that. They use multiple different machines to do that, and it is called distributed denial of service attack. So they send the unwanted malicious traffic to the server, and it says lots of traffic, heavy traffic to the server, so that the normal user is not able to send the traffic or able to access the data. So unwanted and malicious traffic take control over all the available bandwidth on the network, and the legitimate user is not able to access the site or web application. Successful DDoS attack, which can result in service downtime, financial losses, and permanent business disabilities. This is one of the attack on web servers. Next is DNS server hijacking. Attacker compromises the DNS server and changes the DNS settings so that all the requests coming towards the target web server should be redirected to his or her own malicious server. So by hijacking the DNS server, it will redirect, attacker will redirect the user from normal legitimate site to the fake website to do the phishing attack. For that, it will do what? It will hijack the DNS server, it will do poison the cache of the DNS server, so that it will redirect the user to the legitimate user from the legitimate site to the fake websites. So attacker do what? It compromises the DNS server and changes the DNS server settings. It can do by using the DHCP attack and send the user and configure the user with the fake DNS server. Then other attacks of DNS for cache poisoning and other. Then DNS server checks the respective DNS mapping for the requested domain name, and it sends a request. The user will request in the send to DNS server. It will send the DNS server to request for the site, but in response DNS server will send the fake site. So this compromised DNS server send the site address which is not legitimate, which is fake site. So user will be redirected to the fake sites. Then we have DNS amplification attack also. Attacker takes the advantage of DNS recursive method of DNS redirection to perform the DNS amplification attack. That means DNS servers do recursive queries. Recursive queries, that means if the DNS server is not authenticated, it is not authorized, then what it will do the recursive query to find the record for you. That means if suppose we send a request to some for some website, so it will go to our DNS server. Now if the DNS server is not authorized for the domain, that means if it is not that domain request, then what it will do the recursive query, it will send the request to the root DNS server, then top level DNS server, then com servers, top level DNS server, that is com server, then it will go to that company's primary DNS server. So it recursive query works like this, like first client or user says that what is the IP address of this juggyboy.com and please reply to my IP address. So your request will go to the normal DNS server, your user's primary DNS server. Then what if the user's primary DNS server is not the juggy.com DNS server, that means it is not having a root zone file for this domain, that is juggy.com, juggyboy.com, that means it is not an authorized DNS server to give the response. So actually it will check the cache, and if it is not there any information, then the DNS server this user's primary DNS server will do the recursive query, and if the recursive query is allowed here, then only it will do the recursive query. It will send the request to the root servers, root DNS servers. It says where can I find the IP address of juggyboy.com. Now that request goes to the root DNS servers. These root DNS server send the response that I don't know about this, go to .com namespace should have the answer. That means .com is the top level DNS servers. So it will say, root DNS server says that go to that DNS server and there you will find the reply. Now this DNS server sends a request to that com server, top level DNS server, and that top level DNS server checks its record that whether this DNS server is registered or not. Now if it is registered there, then it will send the reply, and if it is not registered, then it will not send any reply. It will send error. Now if the juggyboy.com is registered to this internet DNS server, it is top level DNS server, only then it is having the record, otherwise it will not have the record. So if it is having the record about this juggyboy.com, so it will send the reply and it will send the DNS server's IP of this juggyboy.com, that means the authenticated DNS server, authorized DNS server's IP to this user's primary DNS server. Then this primary DNS server sends a request to this juggyboy.com primary DNS server. It says here is the IP address of this, it says that what is the IP address of this juggyboy.com, and in the response this primary DNS server says that okay, this domain belongs to me and this juggyboy.com is belong to me. That means I am the authorized person, I am the authorized DNS server, and I will respond. So this DNS server will respond with the IP address to this user's primary DNS server, and then user's primary DNS server will send the reply to this user which is already waiting. It says here is the IP address of this juggyboy. Now what attacker do, because you can see it is doing lots of job here, this DNS server, attacker do what, attacker sends a very large amount of this request for different domain, and this primary DNS server, this will do what, it will start doing these recursive queries for each request, and it will get very busy and it will go down this DNS server and it will get confused. So this is what to deny the DNS server by using this DNS amplification attack, by sending lots of recursive queries to the DNS server. So attacker do this to down this primary server, and then they can create their fake server on their own machine, so that when the user try to send the request to this primary DNS server, it is not responding, and the attacker server will respond in place of this because it is not running. So the attacker's server will respond, and it will send the fake responses. It will send these fake responses, that means the fake websites addresses, and the user will redirect to the fake sites. Then we have directory traversal attack. Now in the directory traversal attack, attacker uses this : that means // sequence to access restricted directories outside of the web server root directory. Attacker can use trial and error method to navigate the outside of directory, outside of root directory, and access sensitive information in the system. It is like, if you see the URL, it is like this. If you go to that server.com/, then you have the directory name, then you have the other directory name, then you have the other directory name, and in that directory, this directory, you have the web page. So basically when you access that site, it will open this page, but it is having under different directories. Like this, you can see the directory structure here. So attacker can do what? Attacker can do trial and error method to list these different directories. For example, this is our web server. So when we configure the web server, so we have the document root directory here. Under the web server, we have document root directory, and in that directory we put all the files, all the directories inside that directory, like whatever the files, HTML pages, images, videos, other links, all these files will store into this directory which is related to that web server, website or web application. Like we have different directories here. In that directory we have another directories, in that directory we have another directory. These are all under the document root directory. Then we can have other directories also, and in that directory we have other directory. So we can have different directory structure here. Now in these directories we have some images file, we have video files, we have HTML files, we have icons stored in these directories. We have some sensitive files here under this directory. Now sensitive files, that means it should not be accessed by the users. Now what happens when user access the website? So when user try to access any website, it gives the address of that website. So basically that address is actually the server's address, server's name or server's IP address. So when it access this server's IP address or name, what it get is from the document root directory, it will get the home page file. It will get the home page. That is the HTML file, we can say. It is the home page. That means you will see the first page here, and that is the home page. Now under the home page, it is designed like different images. You will see different links, you will see different paragraphs, different options. So when you click some options here, so it will open that HTML file from that directory. Like suppose here I click on help. So help related HTML files, images are stored into this directory. So when I click on this help, so the HTML file which is stored into this directory, it will open. That HTML file will open, and that HTML file contain different links, different paragraphs, different images, videos. They are stored into this directory. And that in that help, if suppose there is one more link, it is saying contacts. So when I click on that context, so the HTML page open from the other directory. Like suppose it is opening from this directory. The HTML page, remember only the HTML page opens. So you will see the HTML page of that directory, and in that you will see the different context information and all that. Now you can see the HTML file from this directory, but that HTML file kept into this directory and other files also there. Then that directory, inside that directory, this directory is inside this directory, then this directory is inside this directory, and this directory is inside the document root directory. This is the directory structure suppose. Now attacker can do what? It can use trial and error method to try to see what are the other directories it has. It can do what? It can use these two dot slash option. This two dot means to go back one directory, and slash means go forward one directory. So suppose if I want to go back two directories, then I will use dot dot slash dot dot. So it will take back two directory. So it will do what? In the URL where it will have the HTML file here at the end, it will remove that HTML file from here. It will press backspace, and then it will try that whether it can access this directory or not. So instead of HTML, it will try to access this directory. Then if it is not possible, suppose it is not having permission, then it will put the backspace one more time, and it will remove this directory name and try to access this directory. Now it will try to access this directory. Now if it is having a permission, then it will get, otherwise it will get error. Now if it is getting error, then it will give two backspace again and remove this directory name and try to access this directory. Now if it is having the permission here, if suppose this is happens when you have a misconfiguration, and there is an option called directory index. Now if that option, it is a debugging option, so suppose if that option is enabled, so what it can see what is inside this directory. That means it can see that it is having this directory, it is having this directory, it is having this directory. Now what attacker will do, it will try to access this directory. It says whether I have permission to access this directory. If it is not having, or if it is having, then it will able to access this one also, and it can get the access of this sensitive information by using the directory traversal. It can do directly, it can do this by directly changing the URL, that means directly from the URL, or it can do that by intercepting the GET request and changing the request by using this dot slash option. That means if it wants to go back one directory, so it will give dot dot. If it wants to go back two directories, then it will give dot dot slash dot dot. If it wants to go back three directories, then it will give like this. So by doing this, it is called directory traversal attack. Now it happens, or it becomes successful only when the administrator of the web server is not configured the server properly, and it has some vulnerabilities there. It has a vulnerability there of misconfigurations. So this attack can be successful, and attacker can gain the access of this sensitive data which is still in there, in the same directory structure, in the same directory root, document root directory. Then attacker can use man in the middle attack, and for using the man in the middle attack, attacker use the sniffing attack. So man-in-the-middle attack allows an attacker to access sensitive information by intercepting and altering the communication between an end user and web server. So first attacker do what? It comes in the middle of this user and web server, and then it will sniff all the requests and responses. And also it will try to alter those requests and responses. It will do intercept and alter the communication. So attacker act as a proxy such that all the communication between the user and the web server passes through him. So all the requests, all the responses will pass through the attacker, and that attacker will do what? It will see the request and it will try to alter this also. So when the victim visit the website, normal traffic is going like this and like this. So attacker do what? Attacker sniff the communication to steal the session ID, and then victim request for the site, it goes to the attacker, and the attacker will use the stolen credential and establish the connection. It can do, when attacker is in the middle, it can do the session hijacking also, it can do the replay attack and lots of other things, and also it can do the sniffing attack. Then attacker can use the phishing attack. Attacker tricks user to submit login details for website that looks legitimate, but it redirects to the malicious website hosted on attacker web server. Attacker steals the credentials entered and use it to impersonate with the user with the website hosted on the legitimate target server. Attacker then can perform an unauthorized or malicious operations with the website target server. So attacker do what? It will trick the user to visit the fake website first. Fake website, that means it looks like a legitimate site, but it is the fake site. And when the user gives its credential to that site, it will log all the credentials and redirect the user to the legitimate site. Now victim will feel like it is something went wrong and the page is reloaded, but actually it is logged the information. Now attacker will do what? It will use the credential of that user which it gets from the logging, and then what? It will use the credential to log into the legitimate web server, and it will impersonate like that victim. So the web server feels like it is the user which is logged in, and then it will do some malicious things and it will do unauthorized or malicious operations, and it will harm the server. Now it can do lots of different ways to do the phishing, like to redirect the user to the malicious site. It will a malicious or fake site, it will use the DHCP starvation attack, it can use the DNS spoofing attack, and it can do the man in the middle attack also, to do this, to redirect the user to malicious site. Defacement, website defacement. This website defacement occurs when an intruder maliciously alters the visual appearance of a web page by inserting a substituting provocative and frequently offending data. Defaced pages exposes visitors to some propaganda or misleading information until the unauthorized change is discovered and corrected. Attacker uses variety of methods such as MySQL injection to access a site in order to deface it. So it can do this, like it can do what? It will hack the site. It will hack the site and it will do what? Deface the site. Deface the site, that means it will change the look of the site. It will it will say some message there. It will put a message on that page, or it can send the propaganda, spread the propaganda. Then it can also misleading information. It can put the misleading information also that is not correct. Now, if the site is having the vulnerability of these injections, cross-site script or malicious, it is accepting the malicious queries, SQL queries, then it can happen and it can do what? It can deface the website and put a message on that website. It can be a propaganda message or misleading informations. Then web server misconfiguration attack. So server misconfiguration refers to configuration weaknesses in web infrastructure that can be exploited to launch various attacks on web servers such as directory traversal, server intrusion and data theft. That directory traversal attack is also, it is like a misconfiguration. It is based on misconfiguration. That means the administrator has enabled the directory traversal option to do the debugging, but now it has forgot to disable it. It has enabled it, but it has forgot to disable it. So when it is forgot to disable it, so attacker can use it. So there are different, also these other things are there, like verbose debug error messages. That means it has sometime, if they are doing the troubleshooting on web server, they enable the verbose debugging or error messages. Now verbal error messages, that means they wanted to know that what kind of error or debugging messages are coming. But if they don't disable it after doing the debugging or troubleshooting, then it will remain there and it will reveal extra information about the server. That means if suppose attacker try to do something on the server and it gets the error. Now error means what? It gets verbose error. Verbose, that means it will get detail error. In the detail error, it can get the information about the server. It can reveal lots of information which it should not reveal normally. Anonymous or default user passwords, that means anonymous user, anonymous, that means unknown. Anonymous user access is enabled or default user password is used. It can also be a misconfiguration attack. Anonymous users access, they use it for the application sometime to ease of access. They use the anonymous users, and also sometimes they use the default user and password to connect the database services or other applications. So if it is using these default things, then it can be a problem. It is not properly configured, or it is called as a misconfiguration. Sample configuration in script files. Sometimes when you configure a web server, so those servers comes with the sample files, sample configuration files, or sample script files. Now you have to change it. If you remain it like this, then it can be a problem. It is a misconfiguration. Remote administration functions. Now if you are enabling the remote function, remote administration, that means user can manage and administrate the server from remotely, then you have to properly secure it. If you are not securing it, that means you are doing misconfiguration, and is what lead to the misconfiguration attack. Unnecessary services enabled. Sometimes we don't require some services and it is enabled there, so that is also be the problem of misconfiguration. Like I have configured the web server, but in that web server the FTP service is also running. That is not required for me, but still it is running sometime. Or suppose if it is enabled by some, I was doing some troubleshooting or testing and I have enabled it, but I forgot to disable it. It is like lead to the misconfiguration attack. So misconfigured or default SSL certificates also lead to the misconfiguration attack. So if suppose we are using the default certificates or misconfigured, properly not configured, so it can also be the misconfiguration attack. These are some misconfiguration examples. Like for this one, like this configuration allows anon you to view the server status page, which contains detailed information about the current use of the web server, including information about the current host and request being processed. This is the configuration is under the http.conf configuration file of Apache server. If you have this enabled, if you have set this set handler to server status, then it will reveal lots of information about the server. Then under the PHP file, if suppose the configuration gives verbose error messages, so in the PHP configuration file, if we set this display error is on, log error on, error log, syslog, ignored repeated errors, or so it can do what? It can verbose the error messages also. So this kind of this is the some kind of misconfiguration examples. Then we have HTTP response splitting attack. This HTTP response splitting attack involves adding header response data into the input field so that the server split the response into two responses. Then attacker can control the second response to redirect user to a malicious website, whereas the other responses will be discarded by web server. So basically it do what? It add the header response data into the input field so that server will split the response into two. It is like string author request get parameter author pram cookies run new cookie author cookie, and this into response code cookie. Now what happened here? Input, this input is equal to this JSON, this is HTTP request okay set cookie to this, then input is equal to this hacker, and first response controlled by the attacker, this is the first response, and second response goes like this. So first response is accessed by the attacker and it will redirect the user to the fake site, and the second response goes to the server. That means it is splitting the simple response into two. Now attacker will do this when it sit into the middle and using a proxy, like whatever the request is going to the server, it goes first to the attacker machine, then attacker do what? Attacker use these codes to split the response into two and then send that to the web server. So basically attackers is sitting in the middle, and what is doing, it is sending the response splitting request to the server, and first response it goes like this, and second response from the attacker's request. So request for the service, it is going request for the service the normal user is sending, and it is getting the response from the attacker. The attacker sends the request to the server. Then attacker requests for this juggyboy.com, and attacker gets the response of victim request. Then we have web server cache poisoning attack. Now web server cache poisoning attack, that means attacker do what? Attacker forces the web server cache to flush its actual cache content and sends a specially crafted request which will be stored in the cache. So attacker do what? It will send the specially crafted request to the server which will store into the server's cache. So it will remove the original cache and it will put that cache into the server. So attacker is doing what? It is sending request to remove page from cache to the server, that is this page. So server cache says address and page, so this is the address and this is the this is the original page. Then normal response after clearing the cache for the Juggy Boy, it will go like this here in the attacker machine. Then attacker sends a malicious request that generates two responses, that is 4 and 6. Now 4, it goes like this, attacker gets the first server response, and then attacker requests a juggyboy.com again to generate the cache entry, and the second response from the server, attacker gets about the second request a response it like this. Now second response of request 3, that point to the attacker's page, and that is what this. So attacker's page, that means the address will remain www.juggyboy.com, but the page will change to become attacker's page. It is poisoned the server's cache. Previously it was like this original Juggy Boy page, now it is poisoned, after that it is getting the attacker's page. So this one also attacker do by crafting these different queries, different requests from the HTML. We can see it is what get requests. Now we can't do this directly because we can't see this get request in our browser. For these two, for doing this also, we have to capture this response, we have to intercept this response, we have to intercept this request which is going to the server, and for that we use those different tools like Zap proxy, or we can use Bob Suite. So capture these requests in the background, and then we can modify these requests like this so that it can poison the cache of the server. then we can use SSH brute force attack. SSH is the protocol. Protocol is to use to create create an encrypted SSH tunnel between two hosts in order to transfer unencrypted data over an unsecure network. So simple, SSH is the protocol, and it do what? It create the tunnel. It create the secure tunnel between two hosts to send the unsecured data into the tunnel where the network is also not secure. So attacker can do what? It can brute force the SSH login credential to gain unauthorized access to a SSH tunnel. And SSH tunnel can be used to transmit malware and other exploits to a victim without being detected. So first, attacker will do what? It will try to brute force the SSH server to get the access of get the credential of normal user, the password of normal user. Then after that, it will do what? It will create the tunnel on behalf of this normal user from the attacker machine, and then by using the tunnel, it can do what? It can send the malicious data. Now when it sends the malicious data from this tunnel, SSH tunnel, it will not be easily detected by IDS or firewalls. It will easily pass through those security measures, security devices, and it will go under the internal network, and then it will infect the users, infect these different servers. Then web servers password cracking attack. Attacker tries to exploit weakness to hack well chosen passwords. The most common passwords found are password like root, pass administrator, admin, demo, test, guest, swati, pet names, etc. So attacker target mainly for SMTP server, web shares, SSH tunnels to do the SSH brute forcing attack, and then web from authentication cracking, FTP servers. Attacker use different methods such as social engineering, spoofing, phishing, using a Trojan horse or virus, wiretapping, sniffing, keystroke logging, etc. to crack the password. Many hacking attempts starts with the cracking passwords and prove to the web server that they are a valid user. So it will try to crack the password and then try to impersonate that password, impersonate that user to these web servers. Now web servers password cracking techniques. So passwords may be cracked manually or with automated tools such as Cain and Abel, Brutus, THC, Hydra, etc. So password can be cracked by using following techniques. First, guessing. A common cracking method used by attacker to guess password either by humans or by automated tools provided with dictionary. So guessing means it will try to guess all the possible passwords from the simple file like dictionary file. It will try to use the dictionary file, all the words, or it will try to use the manually like human will try one by one every possible passwords, or we can use this automated. That means we can use a tool like these Brutus, THC, Hydra, or even Cain and Abel to attack on web server to guess the password. So dictionary attack like a file of words is run against user account, and if the password is a simple word, it can be found pretty quickly. So dictionary attack, that means it will try to use all the words inside the dictionary. So it will use a file of dictionary, and where this file has all the passwords available which you can have on the dictionary, and then it will try to use it manually by using the by human guessing, like manually try each word, or it can use it automated tools, like it will use the automated tool and use all the words in that dictionary file and try to crack the password, like try to apply all those passwords. So if some password are matched, then it will be logged in, and when it is logged in, it can do anything. Now if the password is a dictionary word and easy and simple, then it can be cracked by the dictionary attack, and that means it can be cracked by the dictionary file. But if it is not that simple password, it is having some complex password, then attacker has to do the brute force attack, the most time consuming but comprehensive way to crack a password. Every combination of character is tried until the password is broken. So it will try all the combination, and by this it will take lots of time, lots of time, depending on the password complexity. Then hybrid attack can also be done. It works like similar to dictionary attack, but it adds numbers and symbols to the password attack. Like it will use the word from the dictionary, like for example apple. Then with that apple, it will start using symbols and numbers like apple 1 2 3, apple 1 2 3 4, then apple at the rate 1 2 3, apple at the rate 1 2 3 4, like this. So it is like a hybrid attack. Then web application attack. Now vulnerabilities in web application running on a web server provide a broad attack path for web server compromise. So if the web application is having the vulnerability, that means it is not properly configured. It is not properly configured by the developer. So if it will lead to the vulnerability. So it can have a lots of different attack. We can have broad attack path. We have parameter form tampering, we have cookie tampering, we have unvalidated input and file injection attack, we have denial of service attack, we have directory traversal attack, session hijacking, SQL injection attack, we have cross-site scripting attack, buffer overflow attack, we have cross-site request forgery attack. These all attacker uses these all attack on web application to crack this web application. Now web server attack methodology. Now we have these methodology to attack on web server. First, information gathering. So if we want to attack on web servers, so we have to do first information gathering, which we do in web server footprinting. So for gathering the information, then we go on more detail that we'll do by using the footprinting method. Then we can use the mirroring website. Now why we do the mirroring website? That means we copy the whole website, the legitimate website, in our own system, so that we can do the footprinting. We can do the footprinting, we can try to get the more information about the site. Then also we can try to see that what type of attack we can do. So instead of directly doing on the website, we can try those attacks on those mirror site. So we will mirror the site and try the attack. So if it is possible, if it is successful, then we can go on to do this on the real site. Then we do the vulnerability scanning. That means after getting the information about the server and application and the version of those servers and application and what technology it is using, we can try to find out the vulnerability related to those application or web server. Then we'll try to do the session hijacking and hacking the web server's passwords. So we try to use those vulnerabilities which we found, then we try to use it to do the session hijacking, or we try to do this to hack the web server's password to gain the unauthorized access. So for first web server attack methodology, the first thing is what? Information gathering. Information gathering involves collecting information about the targeted company. Attackers search the internet, news groups, bulletin boards, etc. for information about the company. Attacker use Whois, traceroute, active Whois, etc. tools and query the Whois database to get the details such as domain name, an IP address, or an autonomous system number. These things is like it is the part of footprinting and reconnaissance, which we have already done on the different lecture. Then web server attack methodology, information gathering from robots.txt file. Now this robots.txt file contains the list of the web server's directories and files that the website's owner wanted to hide from web crawlers. Attacker can simply request robot.txt files from the URL and retrieve the sensitive information such as a root directory, structure, content management system, information, etc. about the target website. It is actually to those crawlers. Crawlers, that means We know the Google. Now Google do what? When we try to find out some information, so what Google do? It is not having a database. It does not have everything there in their database. They have these information. They get this information by using the crawlers. They have their unique code in the crawler. They have a crawler code, like they have the code to do what? Find out this net. So they have their own crawler. So these search engines, they have their own crawler codes, or crawler things, softwares we can say, or crawler scripts. So when we find out, when we try to search something about some sites or some information, so those crawlers do what? They do search the net very fast, and they do search those net to find out about the information. Now web servers developers do what? They try to hide those information. So what they put a robot.txt file into the root directory. So into the root directory they put a robot.txt file. So whatever the crawlers are there, when they go to crawl the sites, if they see the robot.txt file, so they don't go to those directories. They don't crawl those directories which is mentioned in this robots.txt file. It is like this. If you can see the image, it says like disallow these directories. So those crawlers will not crawl these directories. So administrators do what? They put these directories name here which is sensitive, that contains some sensitive informations. Attacker can do what? It can request for this robot.txt file. It can do it by manually adding the robot.txt name into the URL. So it can add the name into the URL to get the robot.txt file. If suppose the site is revealing this robot.txt file, that means attacker can see the root structure of the website, like what is the top directory, what are the different directories they have, and what are the sensitive data, what are the directories which has the sensitive data. So this robots.txt is basically to stop the crawlers, but it can also useful by the attacker. It is useful for the attacker to gain the information about the sensitive directories. Then attacker can do web server footprinting. Now web server footprinting, that means gathers the valuable system level data such as the account details, operating system, software version, server names, and database schemas details. Then telnet a web server to footprint a web server and gather the information such as server name, server type, operating system, application running, etc. The attacker can use the tools such as IDserve, HTTP Recon, and Netcraft to perform the footprinting. Netcraft is the online site where you can see the whole site report. You can see the site report. In that you can see what type of operating system they are using. You can see the other details of that site which you are trying to crawl or trying to get the information. This footprinting also we have seen already in the previous lectures. So we can use these different tools for doing the footprinting, like HTTP Recon. We can use IDserve. When we give the URL of that site, it will give a whole detail about the site, like what are the site. It will send the response. It will show the response of the GET request. Then it will show what are the servers type, what are the application, what is the web application they are using. So it will show all those things. Or we can enumerate the web server information using the Nmap. By using the Nmap, attacker can use the advanced Nmap commands and Nmap scripting engine scripts to enumerate the information about the target website. So by using the graphical or command line, it has some scripts to enumerate the enumerate the HTTP server. So it can use these commands with the scripts like HTTP enum script or HTTP front page login script. It can use HTTP password script arguments like HTTP password root or target IP address. So it can use this nmap command to enumerate the web server information. The aim is to get the information about the web servers or detailed information about the web servers. Then web server attack methodology is mirroring a website. So mirroring a website to create a complete profile of the site's directory structure, file structure, external links, etc. So mirroring the site, that means you will get the complete information about the directory structure, file structure, or external links also. Search for comments and other items in the HTML source code to make footprinting activities more efficient. We can use these different tools like STT, STTrack, Web Copier Pro, Black Widow, etc. to mirror the whole site. So by mirroring the whole site, we can get the information about the structure of directory, and even sometime you will get some sensitive information also. Then we can do what? We can use this mirror site to perform some attacks so that we don't have to attack directly on the site. Then after getting all the information, the next step is to get the vulnerability. So by using the vulnerability scanning method, attacker implement vulnerability scan to identify the weaknesses in the network and determine if the system can be exploited. So it will implement the vulnerability scan to identify weaknesses in the network and determine if the system can be exploited. Then use the vulnerability scanners such as HP Web Inspect, Acquentix Web Vulnerability Scanner, etc. to find host services and vulnerabilities. Sniff the network traffic to find out active system, network services, applications, and vulnerability presence. Test the web server's infrastructure for any misconfiguration, outdated content, and vulnerabilities. So by doing this or using these different tools, it will try to find out the vulnerabilities, because it is already gathered the information about the server application. So it knows that if it is IIS servers or Apache server, what is the version. Now based on that, it will try to find the vulnerability into that. It can use these different tools to find the vulnerability directly by scanning the website, or it can use the version. It knows the versions and application, then it will go to the vulnerability database to find out the vulnerability. Online database, we have lots of different database, like we can go for Google hacking also.